Italy? Whiskey? Ah, Italy beer! You could never unlock my secret. Oh no! Suddenly, hello, Libby! Let's begin. Indeed.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and this is the Fireside Chat, where I basically have on, like, guests that I think are really interesting people for one reason or another. And we will, just kind of like chit chat. Sometimes we'll discuss what we usually discuss on this channel, which is our, a desire to try to, let's say, bring attention to the blind spot that people have about the issues faced by men and boys in our society. And sometimes, though, that takes us into different places. It doesn't necessarily have to live in the realm of the political or, into like activism or any of that. It could just be a discussion. It could just be people's thoughts on these issues. So like in 2018, so this was like 4 years ago, I had a guest on who is our guest today, Poe. Is that how you say it? It's Poe the person.
Poe, yeah.
Poe, okay. No, because I see on the Zoom thing, it says Polly. Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Is it okay that people see that, or are you being doxxed right now?
Well, you've said it now. I think a lot of people know. Every time I have my husband on for a live stream, he always calls me Polly because he can't get out of that habit. So your hardcore fans of the channel probably know my name's Polly, but
all right,
it's fine.
Well, I won't repeat it again, but I must say though, I've always liked that name. It seems kind of rare these days. I don't know too many Pollys or Muriels or Ingrids. I especially love Ingrid. I told my wife if we ever have a daughter, I'm gonna name her Ingrid, and she's like 100% against it. Like, she's like, can't she just be a Rebecca? I was like, no, it's got to be, Ingrid.
I think that the number of Pollys I've met on in real life is like less than 5. It's it's really quite rare. It's more like dogs and parrots and cats. People tell me they've got pets called Polly. It's like a nickname, I guess. But
yeah, that's probably very common with birds now. Unfortunately, but that's just the reality. So I mean, I kind of thought, that maybe it's one of those English things. So I've noticed that in on the other side of the pond, there are very common names that are very rare here in the United States. So, names like Nigel, for example, they're probably more common there than here. So it could be one of those things. But if you've only met like 5 Pollys, then it's probably just, not really a common name at all.
Yeah. I think a lot of old-fashioned names do end up coming back, especially names from books and things. Once all of the, to put it bluntly, once all of the old people with that name have started to die off, it starts to become popular again because people are no longer associating that name with old people. It's now become like a new, like you mentioned by Ingrid. Both of my daughters have quite old-fashioned names, to the point if you imagining, I won't say what their names are, but if you think of the two together, it sounds like you're talking about 2 old women having a conversation.
Yes. I appreciate, that you should probably keep their names under wraps, but it's true. There is something, maybe it's nostalgia, where we want to like bring back or, hear a name that we haven't heard in a long time. So, but anyway, thank you for joining me on the show. Really appreciate having you on. These are the kinds of like, off the cuff conversations I enjoy, because you never know what you're going to get out of it. So back in 2018, when we first met and talked, for one, I wasn't on camera because at the time I didn't have the technology that I have now. So yay. If you guys want to look it up, it's currently privated, but Allison's going to release all the videos on Badger Livestream since we're back on Badger Livestreams. Speaking of which, please be sure to smash the like button. Let people know that we're on Badger live streams again. It's been reactivated. And if you are watching on any of our other streaming platforms, send through a comment. We're currently on Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and DLive. I finally got through that. Solomon Grundy gives us $20 and says, "Blast from the past. Good to see Poe again." So our audience remembers you. And I mean, I always liked you. I always liked your videos and your content. I think it's thoughtful, and I don't mind that it's, you know, like, it's basically just you're saying what's on your mind, I suppose, you know, and you're just sharing these ideas. So tell us a little bit about what your life was like in 2018 when I brought you on, and how much it's changed since then.
Well, when I started my channel in 2017, I just got married, and I made a video about James Damore that got very popular. I talked about feminism a little bit. I was making videos pretty regularly. I would usually upload every week, make a video that was somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes long. And then in 2019, I had my first daughter. I started making videos under the stairs, I believe. I think when we talked, I probably wouldn't have been under the stairs. I can't remember.
You were. I have it up.
Now it's become something of a brand for me now. But.
Yeah. In the secret Harry Potter bedroom or whatever it was. That's how I always thought of it. But yeah, under the stairs.
Well, the conversation has kind of moved on, and the things that I'm thinking about, I don't really think about feminism that much anymore compared to some other stuff. I've since had another daughter, so that's me with 2 now. You might be able to hear the baby just woken up just at the start of the live stream, as she usually does. And I don't get the chance to upload much anymore. People kind of understand why. I now host a live stream every Friday called Women's Hour, which for American viewers, there's a fairly famous radio show in the UK called Woman's Hour on Radio 4, which is a kind of very, I wouldn't call it left-wing, but it's very BBC. It's produced by the BBC, and it's very mainstream sort of takes.
Yeah, it's sort of moderate, corporate leftist, neoliberal stuff, right?
Yeah, very, very much a feminist kind of thing. You'll occasionally get what they now call TERF sort of arguments with feminists, but it's very much taking feminism as an argument that's already been won. We don't really do anything specifically against it. It's just that we do. I since I've come back from what was, I suppose, maternity leave from doing that stream, I have been doing just like whatever I think would be fun to talk about. So I get women on. Usually it's the same couple of women back every week because we have a good time together, and I just talk about whatever I think would be cool. And it's usually a little bit lighter in topics, less sort of thought provoking, and just more a kind of chat.
Yeah.
Kind of what we're doing here.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to steal, the limelight there. I want to let you say it, but that's exactly. It's just we're just chatting. It's okay that the baby is a little, trying to get your attention or whatever. It's okay if you need to get up and take care of it. It's okay too. Not a problem.
I think my husband's got it covered.
Okay, excellent.
When I'm live streaming, that's the time I'm off limits for the baby. Okay.
So you've had 2 kids since the last time we spoke. And when we did talk last time, I believe that you were kind of like, a professional working in a field and all of that. Do you still do that as well as raise your kids? Or have you, have your kids changed your lifestyle?
So since I was probably working at my job a lot more back in 2018. When I came back from maternity leave after 6 months with my first child, I went down in hours so that I could have more time with her. But it still didn't really free up much time to do YouTube, that sort of thing. Now I'm on maternity leave again for another 6 months. And I'm planning to go back in August for back to sort of slightly reduced hours for more engineering work. Looking into the future, I don't know if that's going to be something I can keep up with. We're looking at home educating, but if we can afford to live on a single income, what I'd like to do is to educate my daughters, myself, and whatever children we have sort of next after that. We'd like to have a big family, but my husband wants to have sons, so we're probably going to have some more until we can manage to get one son or two.
Yeah. My mother wanted a daughter, and my father wanted enough sons that the first letter of all of their names would spell out the word basketball or something like that. And my mom was like, no, we're not. She had 3 sons, couldn't have any girls. And then she quit. She says, I can't do anymore. So fortunately, I was the oldest. So I was the one that wasn't on the chopping block potentially for, future spawn. But yeah, so you want to have more kids, and you're also thinking or weighing like, if there's a way for you to educate your own children, which would mean that you would be homeschooling them, which I think is a great idea. Like we still here on this channel talk mostly about the issues that men face, which necessitates us to confront sort of like, feminist orthodoxy, which is basically like created the way in which people see the world. So if we say, well, men deal with these problems or, this issue, the average person will just be like troubled by that unless they know someone in their life that's going through something that we're bringing up. And so they tend to react negatively, hostilely, or at the very least, like highly skeptically. So we have to sort of tear down the orthodoxy, the narratives that are being put out there as these like notions of absolute, of the absolute state of men and women. And one of the, I guess, like, it's one of the reasons why we're still talking about it, but we also want to sort of, that ends up broadening into other areas. So one of the things that we talk a lot about are the problems with schools, and especially now, with the way that certain recent events have affected children's ability to go to school, their ability to interact with their fellow students while at school. I'm not going to go into it too much. I don't know if it's still a taboo subject, to mention recent events that may or may not involve viruses, and the way in which our institutions have responded to it and what harm that may have done to children. And then when you couple that with what we are learning or what's coming out now about how we teach our children, or how the school systems teach children about things like gender, where they include this sort of, identity Marxist gender theory, or whatever you want to call it, and the concepts like patriarchy, which are very old. They're still in schools. They've been in schools for decades, and now critical race theory. And then basically it's all critical theory, right? And so like I'm glad to hear that you are trying to like work this out, where you want to be able to educate your own children. What do you think the odds are that you're going to make it work? Like, is this like a top priority, or does it just depend on, if your situation improves? What do you think?
Well, it's not necessarily a sort of binary thing. So I could work part-time, for example. My mum, who takes care of my kids when I was at work, she was basically a full-time nanny. I don't know what you call it. I think we still call it a nanny in America, don't you?
Yeah.
She's an educated woman, and she'd like to be involved in the education process. So even if I stay at work, if we need the income, or if we decide that we want to have a slightly more higher income for our household, she could help with that, which is less control for us, but it's still probably a million times better than sending the kids off to somewhere where they can just teach whatever, and then if we try to disagree with that, then they're already, having them already primed to think of that as a hateful idea or whatever. I mean, it's not just about gender stuff, but also just things like what I'm really worried about is this equality kind of ideology being really baked into the way they educate children, to the point where any creativity or increased aptitude, competence, the children who are perceived as doing better or excelling won't be encouraged to do that, because that's a disparity, right? And that's something that cannot be allowed because because everyone's supposed to be the same, or everyone's born the same with the same
potential,
greatness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So I would hate to see any of my children get beaten down. I of course all parents think that their children are bright and smarter than average, but even if they weren't, I'd like to think that a few of them would show some competencies in a few subjects at least. And I would hate for them to be beaten down in that way, having a I think they call it tall poppy syndrome, just being, be held back even if the other children weren't going the same direction or going as fast, that sort of thing. And then quite aside from that, it's just so much politics being taught in school, and basically teaching them ethics, which might not be so bad if they're teaching them ethics that I agree with, but the ethical systems that they teach them are like highly political, talking about men and women, like say critical race theory, and I just don't think it's going to get better. And the kids are still babies now; they don't go to school or anything.
It's still a little ways away.
It's a long way away, and I just think the school system's not going to get better, right? It's not. It's getting worse, I think. In 5-10 years, who knows how awful it's going to be? It might be that half of the population starts homeschooling. It might be that private schools start to get better. I have I have a fairly high earning career in engineering. So if I could go to work, I love my job. If I could go to work full time and earn enough to send my kids to a private place that I felt confident in them teaching good values, or even just no values at all, right? They just teach them to get smarter.
Just how to read, how to write, how to do arithmetic.
Intellectual curiosity, if they just taught them that and cultivated their learning, I'd be on board with that, as long as they're being nurtured properly. It wouldn't have to be coming from inside the home. And there are a lot of things that I really liked about going to school back in 90s, 2000s. The friends I made, I really cherish those memories of being away from my parents and talking to, just getting to be with other children my own age. Those are really precious times for me. And I'd hate to take those fun times away from my children if I could help it, if there was a school I could be confident in. And then there's also my absolutely bonkers idea that I might start a school, just like a small place where people could send their children who are like me, and people who don't want their children to be beaten down and moralized, preached to in these government schools. If we could get a class of, 20 kids or something. That would be the best of both worlds, I think.
I don't think that's bonkers at all. I've been hearing more and more people talk about that. I mean, Jordan Peterson I think he's working on some kind of online university. And I know that, some people are skeptical, but I think that it's children need an education. And I don't really think that private schools are doing much better about these kind of this kind of political way that education is set up. Private schools are as bad or worse, as well as charter schools. And the reason for this has something to do with, at least in the United States, so maybe I shouldn't speak for the UK, but at least in the United States, it's not dissimilar. And it has something to do with what qualifies as an education for a child before they go on to college. So a college will only take, registrations from 4 children or 4 young adults to attend based on like the quality of their education in their high school and before. And so it means that if the college is operating under this these sort of like postmodern notions of equality and social justice, etc., as part of their curriculum, then they're going to ask that or demand that from schools educating children that are preparing to go to college. And the more prestigious the college, the worse that is, the more, sort of ubiquitous it is. So at least in the US, and there's do you know who James Lindsay is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so James Lindsay does a series of podcasts called New Discourses on YouTube. They're really great. They're very long, so you have to like sit through them, but they're worth it because he reads through various essays from these, identity Marxist thought leaders or philosophers that are essentially rearranging society, both culturally as well as academically. And he did a whole thing about how in the private schools, because the parents are rich or they're well off, they're comfortable, and they pay $40,000, $50,000 a year to send their children to school, then this kind of like, I'm trying to remember the name of the actual like education Marxist guy that was essentially saying this. Paolo Fieri, I think his name is. I might have that wrong, but he was like from, I believe he was South American, and he was basically saying, okay, it's right for us to essentially take money from these rich people and use it to essentially get equality. And the way we do that is we radicalize their children in schools. So this is being done, even at the really fancy schools, but at least in the US.
Just to piggyback off that about the private schools, is that the good thing is that they all have a website, and you can, and if they are on board with basically radicalizing children, they're not shy about displaying what my friend academic agent would call the symbols of the regime. So they'll just tell you straight up, like, we're interested. Oh, yeah. You go to the values page and it goes like, we're interested in inclusivity, diversity, and happy Pride Month. And it is right there. The problem is that parents don't I think in many cases, if not most cases, parents don't do their due diligence to look at that. But also, even if they do, they might just say, well, that doesn't sound bad, right? Because they're not really, they don't really know what's happening. And so they just kind of accept it. So like in the United States, we have like many ways that parents can like sort of push back, right? And there's been tons of viral videos, and I think most of them are in the US, where parents go to school board meetings, or they go to like council meetings where you have like the school council or whatever for public schools, and they shout at them and they complain to them and they read from these over-sexualized children's books, etc. As their means of fighting back. All the mama bears are coming out, right? Do you have the same kind of recourse in the UK, or is it like a bit like there's less room to express your feelings? I don't know exactly. I know that if you're registered as a charity, then you need to have a committee. It needs to be run by a committee. So you can, I think any parent or even someone who's not a parent can join the committee of a school. They want people to get involved, really. So parents who are involved with, talking to the teachers, helping with school trips, helping out, you can have some influence that way. I believe there are meetings. I've never heard of like a PTA meeting outside of an American context. My parents certainly never went to anything like that. But I think you can involve yourself if you want. They don't really invite it exactly, other than just to say, can you come along to this field trip, the school trip to to help give out juice boxes or whatever. They're not asking for
feedback
for advice on values, but there's certainly, if you want to influence in that way, I think you can. And if I were to send my kids to a school, whether it was private or government, then I would definitely try to get involved in that way. If I'm able to work full time, I may as well give my time to at least that much. And I would encourage all parents to do that, just figure out what your kids are like learning, or just go to the library and see what books they're recommending. I think it is important. You can't really, like, you don't even know how bad it could be until you just look. And I'm sure the people who watch this stream they're probably on board with it already. But
I would hope so. At least to start thinking about it. But yeah, I that was one of the reasons why I asked, because I noticed that a lot of the, like I said, it's mostly American people that are complaining at these, student, council meetings. And I'm thinking, well, I know this isn't only happening in this country. I know that the same kind of stuff has got to be going on in most Western countries, like in Western Europe countries, and the UK and Canada, etc. But for some reason, I'm only seeing this in America, and I was wondering, is it because I know that Americans tend to be more likely to vocalize their displeasure, maybe, but again, I don't want to make any assumptions, because but I do know that, we are notoriously ornery people when we're not happy. So
well, the same can be said of Australians, and I certainly haven't seen much coming out of there, to be honest.
Oh no, it's been very quiet. Australia doesn't, I love Australia. I love Australians because I've been there once, and I feel, really fortunate to have the opportunity to go. And I feel the same way about the Canadians and the Brits. I really love those people, and I feel so sad Australia is in the shape that it's in right now, because I know that they're better than that. So unfortunately, they got screwed by their government.
Yeah, I mean, definitely with the lockdowns, or seem to be intense and insane over there. I don't know how bad they've got it in terms of education. I think every segment of the West and the Anglosphere has their own strange cocktail of different causes in different intensities. So they get, America probably gets the worst of the race stuff, George Floyd and riots and stuff like that. Whereas, we in the UK, we have a lot of conversations about Islam and religious freedom. Just this week, we've been talking about sort of the rejuvenation of blasphemy laws in the UK after, I don't know if you heard about this, a film was taken out. They're no longer showing this major film in the UK because of Muslim protesters.
I saw, and maybe it was that, but I did see a viral video not long ago that it was like a big city, but I couldn't tell what city it was. And there was a large gathering of Muslim men, and there was one guy on a megaphone talking about how, something about how, there was something blasphemous that was out there that was criticizing Islam, and that he was, very angry about it. That's all I could say, And, but yeah, well, the kind of because, you made this really great video about demoralization, which I think is the best, or the goal that most people that would be, find themselves on the side of what they would call progressives. It's it seems to be the real thing they want, because if people embrace nihilism, then they can do whatever. No one's going to fight back. So it's about taking away our ability to fight back, right? The purpose of it. And the way that they do it, I believe, is that every Western country, or every country they want to attack, there's a different kind of progressive cocktail that they mix for each one, based on that country's demographics, based on its history, whatever it needs to be. So in Canada, for example, they base it on their number one victim group, aside from women, which is basically, that's a universal everywhere, is the indigenous population. So they use the indigenous population. The reason is because Canadians, as it's built into their political practices, whenever they give a speech or they do a presentation or anything, there is like this land acknowledgement, right? It's basically, I'm sorry for being white and living in this country, indigenous people, right?
Yeah.
And so because there is this constant apologizing, then that gets weaponized against Canadian people. I mean, you could also talk a bit about the tensions between, say, the French Canadians and the regular Canadians. I don't really know what else to call them. But I think that the thing that gets the most exploited is the indigenous history. This is why we had that in Canada, they had this thing where there were supposedly all of these corpses that were buried under some Catholic church, and that they were supposedly the corpses of and then they burned down a bunch of churches. So this is like what is used as the catalyst for those actions. And I think in the UK, from my perspective, I know that the Islam thing is a big part of it, as well as just general immigration. There are general immigration issues, but I think there is also this like notion of colonialism that gets used, that the English are colonizers, and this is sort of like the way that they get close to the kind of racism accusations that we get in the United States, without actually like making themselves look silly. So they sort of walk this line. And I think in Australia, it's not as easy, but there is something with the Aboriginals that gets weaponized too.
Oh yeah.
So
it's the same thing. It's the
it's the same. It's the same thing exactly.
Yeah.
So
just for anyone listening who's not familiar, I'll just give a quick overview of the whole British Empire thing. Not that I'm a historian or an expert on the subject, but I think everyone's aware that the British people colonized a lot of countries, and bad things were done to the locals by the British people who went to colonize, but really they just turned up in places to trade with them, and they needed to impose a little bit of order in order to secure the trades they were doing, which ended up being, if you turn up and you're the most well-armed, most organized person, you end up sort of getting power even if you didn't even want it, in some ways. But the fact is, if you go to these countries like Hong Kong, you can go to, I don't know, Australia,
parts of India.
India, absolutely. And these aren't places that have been impoverished by the British influence. These places do a lot better than their non-colonized counterparts. Mm-hmm. The British brought a lot of infrastructure with them, building roads, building these beautiful buildings that still exist to this day. And I think it's a real shame, because it's one of those things that you're taught at school in England. All the awful things that the British have done in other countries, and you never hear about the good stuff. It's like,
of course.
And I wouldn't like to downplay the some of the massacres, some of the the ways that
the wars and whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
Opium wars and all of that. It's just that it needs to be counterbalanced, I think, with a more sort of holistic understanding of what the British were doing overseas. And there was a kind of a real explorer spirit that was, there's this, if you look back at the Britain of the past, it seems that they had so much faith in themselves that we now just don't have at all,
Yeah. Well, again, this brings me back to the demoralization thing, because I do think that is a big problem. And, I see it. And so I used to live in Chicago. When I interviewed you, I was living in Chicago, and Chicago has a bit of a reputation for being like, lots of crime, lots of gang violence, lots of murders and shootings and so on. But I lived there my whole life. I didn't have a problem with it because I knew where those things happened. It was in small pockets. It was usually, some interpersonal beef. It wasn't just people running around shooting at random people, right? And so I managed to live there, not an issue. But then the riots of 2020 happened, and my wife, who I emigrated here from Canada, she wasn't really prepared, and it was very chaotic. And so I said, we're going to move. And we came to southwestern Virginia, which is where we are now. And Virginia is, it's a very different culture. It's a very different state. But it's actually, people mainly get along, right? And I think that there's a lot more optimism here, and I think it might have something to do with the fact that it's a smaller town. I think the population is like 1 million people around here, and that's compared to Chicago, which is like 3 million. And I think that people get along better. I mean, part of it might have to do with the fact that everyone has a gun, but you know, I don't have a problem with that. And I guess what I'm seeing around me is a lot more optimism. And I think that when you have that, and this is why I think the demoralization thing is a very important thing that people should think about. When you have that, even if you don't think you can change the world, which I don't think that people should be trying to carry that weight, you know, to quote the Beatles. But I think that they should at least, you know, be able to like maneuver through their own life and accomplish their own goals on some small scale. And they will find that that is very rejuvenating. So, you know, I just wanted to say that I really like that you made a video about demoralization. Do you think, how important do you think it is to like try to remain moralized, and how are you doing at that?
Okay, well, that's a big question. Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because it is so important to, you know, just to maintain that that optimism about yourself, to believe that you're capable of doing good things and of being a good person. I think it's a real shame when people don't even want to be ambitious or to operate in the world, because they believe that the world itself, the system that they live in, is so corrupt and immoral that even just to participate in it is to be corrupt and immoral.
Yeah.
So they just don't, you know, they don't even want to succeed. And there's definitely, you know, lots of scope for criticizing the system, and I'm the first in line to give my complaints. But I still, you know, I'd like to be liked, to have friends, and just to make a comfortable life for my family as much as possible, without having to feel guilty about that, and to think about, you know, I know that there are people who aren't as lucky as me, and that's a shame for them. I'd like to, you know, reduce that as much as possible, but I'm not going to let that stop me from trying to achieve the best that I can for myself, even if that ends up widening the disparity between the best off and the worst off. That's my life. I'm doing my best for myself and for my friends and my family. And I really wish people would go and watch that video. I don't usually do this, but you know, I haven't made videos for a while after just having another baby, and YouTube doesn't like to advertise your stuff if you're not making content regularly. YouTube just kind of forgets about you and stuffs you in a drawer, doesn't recommend your videos. So even people who are subscribed to me, who like watching my videos, may not have been recommended that one, which is a shame, because I thought I worked hard on it, and I thought it was important, and I tried to make it sort of funny and interesting. So yeah, go ahead and watch that if you haven't already. Anyone watching this. Yeah,
check that out. Again, you know, I'm just someone who wants to like remind people that no matter how bad everything seems to be, you have a choice. You have, like, you know, you can at the very least, like the Stasi are not at your door yet, right? Or whatever it is that you might be worried about. Like, you still have choices, and you should make them. So we do that here. Like, my wife and I, we take charge of our life. We don't let everything we hear about get us down. We just adapt. And then we have, like, for example, you know, there have been these stories about all of these food plants that are burning down, right? All these food plant fires. And of course, no one knows if it's just a series of coincidences, if it's just people paying attention to something because it sounds related to another crisis, and therefore they're seeing it more than, you know, but it may not be that unusual. Whatever it is, right? And my wife and I, we saw all that, and we were just like, okay, we're gonna go and we're gonna stock up on tons and tons and tons of food. And that's what we did. And now I don't really worry about it. We have we bought an extra large freezer. We filled it with meat, because that's what we eat. And now I'm going to keep an eye on what's going on, but I'm moving on to the next thing. And it's like, really, it's because it's what you can do. And so you just act in the way that you're able, and you will feel like you have more control over your life. And it's the demoralization comes from this idea that you have no control. You cannot change the outcome. You need some kind of political leader or a savior to sweep in and like
These
rescue
days, experts, scientists.
Yeah, or experts, exactly. And the point is, like, we should be doing our best to not need that, because I think that's why so many leftists are nihilists, because they do operate under this presumption that the way you fix the world is through the use of power. And so if the people in power don't have your interests, then there's nothing you can do, and then everything is pointless. So, but that's just not how the average person is affected. The average person is affected by their own choices, and that includes who they choose to associate with, who they keep as friends, who they love, right? And so I think that, if you're able to, that's the kind of thing you should be focused on.
Yeah, just to something you said there reminds me of the Stoic philosophers, ancient Greece, and all that. You taking control of the things that you can change, starting with yourself and your own behavior. How can you improve what you're doing to make the changes you want to see in your life? And I guess to come back to your original question about how I've been doing for the last 4 years, I guess I've been looking to ancient wisdom a lot more, whether it's trying to read ancient Greek philosophy, and also the Bible is something I've been looking to. I've started going to church on Sundays. I don't really call myself a Christian, like a believing Christian, but I've started to really value the Bible and what that has to say.
You mean the wisdom of the Bible, kind of? Yeah,
pretty much. I think there's a lot in there, and I'm constant now that I'm thinking about the Bible more. Just sort of Bible verses sort of pop into my head about if you I can't think of it now, but the way that if you
lost it,
if you attend to doing the right thing in your life, the Bible says that the Lord will clothe and feed you. Which is not sort of, I don't interpret that literally. All you have to do is nothing, and you'll just be, someone will just take care of you. It's more just that if you attend properly to the things in your life that need work, and just try to be a good person, then everything else will take care of itself. All you need to worry about is being moral and just the best person you can.
Yeah, but it does reorient your life, it's not magical thinking, right? It basically means that you behave this way, then you will change your behavior, you'll change your habits, you'll change your social circle will change, right? And all of that is where, and so many other things that we can't even quantify for, will alter your life. So, and again, it doesn't have to be biblical. I know that some people do get like a weird reaction to that, but I think it's just, it's kind of common sense, How has your children changed you? Like, because I guess maybe it hasn't changed you that much, but.
I think you'd have to ask someone who knows me better. It's so hard to look at yourself in the past. I don't know, like, if I went back and watched my videos when I first started making them 5 years ago, I'd probably like majorly cringe. Like I think I'd probably find that really embarrassing, because some of my opinions have changed, and I think I'm getting better at making videos. But as for how I've changed as a person because of having children, I just can't tell. You'd have to see it as an observer, I think, and I have less spare time. I'm more productive in the sense that I spend more of my day doing things. I don't get to sit down and read a book or play a video game. I completely stopped playing most video games, watching anime. Things that I used to like doing have now been replaced by taking care of children, which I like doing more. I'm very happy to do that, but it means that my sort of just what my day looks like is completely different.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that is a change. I've stopped. I used to play a lot of video games too, and it's not that I think there's anything wrong with video games, but I've decided that I'm going to be a lot more selective on what I do with my time. I've basically just started treating my time like it's more valuable, and so I've decided to learn a new skill, and something I've always wanted to do, which is learn how to play an instrument. So I just got my guitar in the mail today, but according to the box, it says I can't open it for 24 hours because something to do with the instrument, like temperature changes, and they say if you take it out too soon, it can damage it. So I'm just gonna wait until tomorrow to fiddle with it and really, because I started learning guitar years ago, and I bought this, and it was really spontaneous, but I bought this guitar that I still have, but the problem was it was really hard for me to press down on the frets.
It's called the action on a guitar, the distance from the string to the fretboard. If it's big, it'll make it. It makes it harder to play. But I've also heard musicians say that if you start on an instrument that is really rubbish, it's like really difficult to play. It's like Goku training with weighted armor. Like you never become like an amazing musician. You like with this, you're training with this handicap, and then when you've earned that expensive instrument with in the sense of guitar, you get like a smaller action that will be easier to play. You'll be like amazing. You'll be like strumming all over the fretboard. I play the guitar.
Oh, you do play guitar. Great.
That's one of the things I haven't had time to do that for ages. Picked up the guitar.
So the one I had, it had steel strings, and the steel strings were really hurting my fingers. And I know that I had to build the calluses, right? But I was just struggling with it so much, and I need to replace a string on my old guitar. So I thought, let me get another one. I got some recommendations for one that has nylon strings, and it's a little smaller. The one I had was this huge guitar, right? So I'm going to practice on the nylon, and then I'm going to build up to the big one. And I think but anyway, that's what I'm doing with my time when I'm not working. It's basically like learning a skill, and then I want to use that to essentially bring some beauty into the world, because as an artist, and I know you're an artist too, I'm really saddened by the state of our culture artistically. And so, I want to bring some beauty in the world. So this is why I want to learn. And I think it could be fun to bring some, music into shows, or do collaborations with Dr. Randenbergham, who's an amazing guitarist. So I'm not trying to get on his level, but those are just some self-improvement things that I think would be great, and I think that lots of people could benefit from that. And I know that we don't have a ton of time left, but I want to talk a little bit about art, because you said I
had no idea where the time was going.
Yeah, I know. We only last time we talked, we went for 2.5 hours. No, almost 2 hours. It was like an hour and 40 minutes. But I wanted to talk a little bit about art, because I noticed that you have made a couple of videos about films, and you did one on iRobot. Yeah. You did one on 12 Angry Men. And I didn't finish the 12 Angry Men one because it's a little longer, but
I finished the actual analysis in the first 20 minutes. The rest of it was just me chatting to the stream, so you didn't miss anything.
Oh, okay. So, and I thought that was really fascinating because with my wife, she's a millennial. How old are you? A millennial too? I assume you're in your 30s.
I think I'm a young millennial. Yeah, I do sometimes identify as Gen Z, just to troll people. Basically, I'm 28 years old. I don't really have a memory of 9/11, but then I'm not an American, so it's not quite as significant for people who live in this country. But still, not having a memory of 9/11, I think, makes me feel very young compared to older people.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, so it sounds like you're either a very young millennial or a very old Gen Zer, but it's not that important. But my wife's a millennial, and so when she was young, she didn't see any of the movies that I did. And I love film. I love movies, especially from my time. So I'm a Gen Xer, and I watched everything that ever came out in the 80s. Basically, I've seen it, and I've been showing her these films because a lot of modern cinema is, frankly, it's garbage, and very little of it is like at all remarkable, with some exceptions. So we've been watching a lot of older movies, and I find what's really interesting about this is there are things that get revealed in art that even the artist may not have intended to get out. But yes, if you know what you're looking for, if you're paying attention, you will notice things. And again, if you're not just enjoying what the spectacle is in front of you, but you're actually like trying to really be consciously engaged in what's being shown, and you can find really interesting things. I'm reminded of, for example, and this isn't just art, you can go to literature as well. When I learned about Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, and I learned about her personal life and how she was the daughter of Mary Wollstonecraft, and that I think it was like her and Lord Byron, they went to this retreat, and they had orgies, and they did drugs, and and then like after that, she was his mistress who was cheating on his wife or something. So there was all of this scandalous stuff going on, and then in the wake of that, she wrote Frankenstein. And when I was a kid and I read that book, I didn't know any of that stuff, because of course not. But in the after that, going back and thinking about it, I was like, oh, she was dealing with guilt, like her conscience, right? And I think that Bram Stoker, when he wrote Dracula, it was the same. It was the same kind of thing. And I think, what's the symbolism of vampires? And I think it has something to do with, it's obviously sexual, it's obviously deals with lust, but I think it also deals with things like STDs. Like monkeypox, for example. So, and I guess,
go ahead. Analyzing arts, and I think especially film gets the worst of this, where it does seem like almost infinite interpretations that it welcomes. And there's some works like Fight Club that get, I've seen like videos analyzing Fight Club from like 60 different angles, where you'll see a guy and he's like, Fight Club, it's about being gay. And then he goes,
I've seen that.
Oh yeah, Fight Club, that's an anti-feminist movie. Or like Fight Club, that's about masculinity. And it's like, yeah, I can see it. Like, art ends up being a kind of Rorschach test, where it's like, it's not that random ink blot doesn't look like a butterfly. It's just that you're kind of putting that on there. And that doesn't mean it's not true, right? Because you can still learn something by analyzing stories in that way, I think, especially something like film, where there's dialogue, there's imagery, the cinematography. It's so rich for interpretation. I love to do that, talking about things, but I guess I love films as well. It is interesting to go in and go like, well, wait, what did they intend? And then also, regardless of what they intended, what can you find in there?
That's how I see it. It's not that I'm trying to like get into the head of the writer or the director and say this is what he meant, but it's more like, oh, I wonder like if they considered this, or here's something that I'm seeing. Like what the most recent movie I watched with my wife was The Lost Boys. And The Lost Boys, in case you guys don't know, it came out in 1987. It starred this guy, Patrick, I can't remember his first name. And the Corey brothers, or they're not the Corey brothers, but the Coreys are in it. Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, Kiefer Sutherland. And it's basically like this family that's recently divorced, moves to this coastal town in California called Santa Carla. Doesn't exist, but it's based on a real place. And they move there, and they don't know anyone, and it's basically a town that has a bunch of vampires that live in the town, and the vampires prey on people. And of course, the vampires are like these young, teenagers that ride on motorcycles, and they're very sexy and all of that. And it was directed by Joel Schumacher. who is openly homosexual director. He made Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. I think a lot of people know him for that. He also did he's done a number of movies, right? And so I was watching that film, and when I saw it in the 80s, I thought it was great. Like, I just thought it was really cool, and it had great music and everything, but I wasn't really like paying attention to the deeper themes. And then when I watched it with my wife, I was like, wow, this is really interesting, because it seems to be about, well, one of the themes that I see in it is one of it brings me back to thinking about vampires as a symbolic creature. And what is it about vampires that makes them interesting? Well, one is that it's like they have this curse of eternal youth, or they stay the same age, or they don't age, or whatever, but they also spread this like a virus to other people, like, and there's also like the drain that they have on, like, on a society, and they're always surrounded by death and these other things. So it's interesting because the Lost Boys essentially, have you seen it? I don't know if you've ever seen this movie.
A long time ago.
Yeah, you might have to watch it again, but it's just something, the most recent example of something I've been thinking about. And I think that in a way there is a lot of grooming happening in the movie, because the youngest and most innocent kids are the ones that end up fighting back against the vampires. And the vampires are like, they're in their late teens. They're sort of like late teenagers. And there is a head vampire who is an adult man who works at a video store, and he seems to have been preying on these kids, and then turns them into monsters, and then those young people turn other people into monsters. So I'm like, well, what? I know that that's sort of the nature of the thing, but also there is something going on here. Like, I feel like there's something being said. So I think it's just, I love doing that. I love talking about film, and that was just the most recent example.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard Ernest Hemingway talking about people are always asking Hemingway about what is it, what does this mean? Like, what were you really writing about? And I don't know if he was being facetious or what, but he said that he tries to write something as true as he can, just accurate to life. Make it honest, make it really, really honest. And the wonderful thing is that it then becomes more meaningful in to loads of interpretations, where for Lost Boys, if you write it well, if you write the people acting like people really act, then it could be about it could be about STDs, it could be about sex, it could be about ideological spread, the way that people get converted to be ideological zombies, right? And it can accurately mean all these things in that way, that reality is kind of, I don't know what to call it, like it's kind of fractal. Like, you see the same pattern emerging in a few places, and things can be represented in ways that are look completely different, but they mean the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's why I guess I'm giving, because I really do enjoy the film and many of the other ones that I've tried to expose my wife to, because I do get the sense that there's something honest in it, even if maybe I'm taking something different away. But if you approach telling a story with the desire to essentially, like, what is it that Aristotle would say? It needs to be based in like a human truth. It doesn't. I don't mean like the way that progressives would word it, where it's like my truth, because the obviously if you do your truth, then most people won't be able to relate, which is, I think, one of the reasons why so much media today is not, it's not good, because people don't relate in a human way. But if you're saying something, if you're just being honest, about reality, and that doesn't mean that you couldn't have elements that are fantastical, because they can only amplify that, right? But if you are doing it in reality, I think that it will please people, even if they have completely different like, you know, things that they take from it because they're affected by their experience. So they might see something that you didn't because they have, like, you know, and that's what makes it beautiful, in my opinion.
You know, something I read recently, it's quite frustrating how, you know, being so politically engaged. It's somewhat frustrating that art is usually produced by what we call the left, like progressives. And the most recent example for me was reading, I don't know if you know The Name of the Wind, if you like fantasy series, but there's someone watching this who's read it. But it's a 2-part series, and it's kind of like it's kind of like Game of Thrones in the sense that the author said he's going to write more to finish the series, but it's not out yet. And the thing is that the author, Patrick Rothfuss, he basically stopped writing because he had like a mental breakdown in 2016 when Trump won the election.
Oh no.
So he's like, he's not just left wing, he's like majorly like Trump syndrome, really upset about this whole thing. And yet he writes such good books that seem so true to human character that it seems impossible to me that someone can understand human nature this well, you know, well enough to write such good characters and such interesting stories. And yet still be what appears to me extremely deluded about the state of reality. Like, how can someone be so right and then so wrong at the same time?
Well, maybe he hasn't, because I have seen a lot of people with TDS that are normally pretty rational, and on that,
and that's why they call it that,
and on that particular issue, it's all out the window. But I think that, I mean, I hope, because I think the integrity of beautiful art is more important than, you know, whatever your politics are. But for some people, their politics, it rules over them, and they feel like, I don't know, they have to make a statement all the time, and they do it in their art, which I think diminishes their art. Did you hear about what happened to the Mona Lisa?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Did that?
I mean, the Mona Lisa's okay, right? They just defaced like the glass in front of the painting.
Yeah, they didn't damage the painting. They just defaced the glass. But when I first heard about it, I was so angry. I was so angry about that. And, you know, I mean, because again, you know, it's the only reason why someone would do that is because it's the Mona Lisa. Like, I can't think of another reason except to say I want to tear this thing down because I don't think it deserves the reverence and praise that it gets. And I'm thinking, how old is this painting? It's like, you know, 500 years old or more. So, but yeah, I mean, and the person claimed that this had something to do with their environmental activism. They were like trying to save the earth by smearing cake on the Mona Lisa. And so I brought this up, you know, yesterday too, but there is like, that would have been very demoralizing if that got on the painting. That would have really, really bothered me. And I think that is the goal.
You know what? I don't really like the Mona Lisa that much. You know, like, do you know why the Mona Lisa is the most famous painting ever?
Why?
But I don't know if this is true. I heard that Da Vinci, he really, really great artist. He was very popular in his lifetime, and his favorite painting was the Mona Lisa. So he had this special reverence for it. Apparently, he's like take it around everywhere he went. When he went on tour or whatever, he loved this painting.
So he was very proud of it.
Yeah, he was proud of it, and like, I think that it's not the best Da Vinci painting, right? Like, he's done like so many amazing.
No, I agree.
And, you know, I think it is a little bit sad that the Mona Lisa is the most famous painting in the world because it's not the best painting. And I think it's like pretty much no one except for Da Vinci who thinks that that's the best painting in the world.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so.
I'm not going to deface it. I'm not going to throw cake at it. But you know, people go to the Louvre where the Mona Lisa is. Apparently, it's like a stupid percentage of people, like tourists. They go to Paris and they go, let's go to the Louvre, and then they basically don't have time to go and look at all the amazing paintings. They go straight to the Mona Lisa. It's like 20% of people who go to the Louvre don't look at any other paintings. They go straight to the Mona Lisa and they go, oh yeah, I know this painting. I've seen it online. You know, this is just, they're just going there to be there. and to stand in front of the real Mona Lisa, even though they've seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
When there's so many other beautiful paintings in the Louvre that you could go and look at, and like you've probably never seen them before.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and it's the Mona Lisa is not my favorite painting either. In fact, one of my favorite artists is Toulouse-Lautrec, and he did this great painting. It's not the Moulin Rouge painting everyone knows with the creepy woman in the corner, you know. It's another Moulin. It's the Moulin Rouge, but from another angle. And and that painting is in the Chicago Art Museum, and that was one of my most favorites. It's like there's some Van Goghs in there, and one of my favorite Van Gogh paintings is none of the ones that everybody says they love, like his bedroom or the one with the
Starry Night.
Yeah, Starry Night. It's not. I mean, those are nice, but like my favorite is one that he did of these three men that were laborers or farmers or something, and they were sitting on a fence drinking, and he painted them, and it was like capturing a moment, which is what the Impressionists, were trying to do. And that's my favorite painting by him, because it looks a little cartoony, but it's very fun, and I almost felt like, I was thinking about what he was thinking about when he was doing it. So, I'm not the kind of person that says the Mona Lisa is great because we were told that, but I do think that it does have like significant cultural impact, and so the fact that everyone wants to it's like a thing that brings everyone together, right? If they go to Paris, they're going to want to go to the Louvre, just like you said, and they're going to want to look at the Mona Lisa, and everyone knows like that's where it is. It's like going to the Sistine Chapel or going to the Vatican or going to Versailles. Everyone wants to see that because there is something about it that is, first of all, culturally significant, or going to the Colosseum, in Rome, or the Parthenon, because there is history there, and it does bring people together. And for that reason, I think that, hey, if it just happens to be the Mona Lisa, then it's the Mona Lisa, like whatever works, right?
Something has to be the most famous. So yeah,
or the Pieta, that sculpture of Mary holding Christ, that is huge, so I think that's the thing about art, and I think that it does bring people together to appreciate it.
It's a cultural canon, I think, where even if not everyone has seen the same movies and knows the same names of the same films, the same paintings or whatever, there are these touch points that you can have a conversation, and you're talking about Van Gogh, and I know the paintings you're talking about. We're having a conversation about art in a way that, you live in a completely different country, and we've only spoken once before, but we can have a conversation about the movies that we like and the paintings that we like, and we have this culture in common. That is, it's a wonderful thing, but it's also. It is a little bit sad that everything has become so homogenous, I think, to the point that, Canadian, American, British culture is that similar, to the point that the true diversity, which would be to have these different countries with our own particular cultures and our own particular art, we now have, it's all just one thing. We don't have the true diversity. We just have everything's just the same. You go to Canada and you see the same McDonald's that you can see in England or America.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. That, I mean, what I guess the problem is that I want to see more new creativity, and I don't, because I'm not the kind of person that necessarily wants to hold on to these old things forever, but I think that we need them to remind us, and this new fresh creativity that makes things that we will find beautiful. I want to say just art, but I think the conversation around art has changed in the last, probably since, I would say, since the early 20th century or even the 19th century. Something changed in the world of art. I mean, anyway, it's shifted. It's become very elitist. And like I know that because I studied art history. I went to this art school in Chicago, and there's the Art Institute with this massive museum, and they have like, you know, the old Baroque paintings. They had the Bosch, Hieronymus Bosch stuff, sculptures, stuff from around the world, and then it evolved. It got into the Impressionists and the Existentialists and the Expressionists and the Romantics, and then there was a modern wing that was added. And I think that the art culture, when I say that, I mean people who buy it, people who run museums, people who run galleries. There is a seriously massive disconnect between them and regular people who like to look at beautiful things. And I think you could see that, for example, for those of you guys who, you know, may not know about art or don't care about it. If you look at films today, what the critics love, regular film goers tend to not like, right?
Yeah.
And the reverse.
The most startling example of this, if you look at like the Met Gala, where you can see all these dresses and outfits that celebrities wear to the Met Gallery for this big event, these are not outfits that people like. These are not clothes that, even if we could afford these clothes, it looks so much worse than like a t-shirt and jeans that you could get for 1% of the price.
Yeah,
like,
Old Navy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these are outfits that are flaunting how elite they are. Basically, going like, we are so famous and so well liked that we can wear garbage, and people think that people will take photos of us and put it online.
Yeah, like absolutely.
You have to be this cultured to appreciate how crazy my outfit is.
Yes, I think you're getting to it. That same elitism that you see in celebrity culture today, I think that something like that was in play in the sort of, you know, these like more radical, I don't know, postmodern. I think I don't know how else to put it. The postmodern art movements of the 19th and early 20th century. And I think that had a massive effect. I could go on for hours, but I know we're over time. But I think that what it's done is it has disconnected people from art, and people want to see beauty, and they want to see it expressed, and they want it to be expressed honestly. That goes back to what we were talking about, you know, what that guy said, and his name I don't remember already. I apologize. I do appreciate that sentiment. So, you know, and I think that is moralizing. But Poe, I know that you gotta go back to being a mom.
I just gotta go to sleep, dude. So like, I couldn't start the stream until the baby had fallen asleep, and now it's getting like close to my bedtime, because it's just I have to get. I'm going to be woken up at 6 tomorrow with the kids wanting to have my attention. So it just never stops around here, and I only get like a small window in the evening to unwind and then go to bed. So
well, I'm very appreciative that you chose to use your time talking to me, and I'm a big fan of yours. I like your work, and you know what? I do want to say one more thing. So hopefully this doesn't put you over too much, but you mentioned a women's night like stream that you do, and yes. One of the things that I think is really that I've been talking to my wife about a lot lately is she thinks that women need to start like collaborating or talking with other women about like essentially virtuous womanhood or whatever that means. Because one of the things that, you know, we talk about men's issues here, and one of the things that I try to do is, you know, try to like bring people's attention to men's issues, but I also like to talk about what virtuous manhood looks like. And one of the reasons for that is that I don't think that it's demonstrated around us all that often, especially because of the rampant fatherlessness and all of these other issues, right? The state of the family, etc. But there also should be a conversation about what it means to be a virtuous woman, and that it has unique traits or qualities outside of men, not just to work with men and collaborate with men, but also on its own. And so I was wondering, is that like, first of all, do you agree with what I'm saying and what my wife believes? And secondly, is that something of a goal that, you know, you might have?
Yeah, I think I definitely would like to do that. And we talk about what I call like social issues, like marriage, relationships, from what I would hope would be a more sort of socially conservative view of talking about modesty, marriage, talking about how to relate to men in the modern world without without leading them on, without making things messy between men and women in the way that we often see these days. And we also just talk about how to be feminine. I think something is a little bit foreign to me, but I have some wonderful co-hosts who are much more feminine than me, who are, I guess, sort of teaching me. But yeah, I think women just, think in a very different way to men, which is kind of how I started off my YouTube channel, talking about, James Damore and Jordan Peterson. It's a very conversational way of thinking. So if you get women together and they chat, you'll come up with things that none of those women could have thought of on their own, just doing a blog or writing a book. And I think that it's not on my channel. It's on the Academic Agents channel. I don't know how your audience are aware of him, but his goal, he sort of just enlisted me to help him with this goal. He wants to create a completely parallel set of entertainment shows.
Absolutely.
So people go to Radio 4, it's always on, right? 24 hours a day. You can go to Radio 4 and they'll be having a conversation about something. And it's got its own political leaning. They've got their own bias. But he wants to create a channel where he's taking up as much airtime as possible, just with content that has a better morality, right? So our Women's Hour is just complementing that. It's just to have just doing what Radio 4 does, but for us, right? Something that's more, just like this better. So like you have to tune in and you get up to date and catch up with all the episodes or anything. It's just there so that you can turn it on, go in the chat and say hello, hear what we have to say, and then tune out when you're done listening to us.
I think that's great. I agree 100% that we need like a parallel, entertainment or media apparatus that people can go to, because I know that lots of people are doing it. Daily Wire's got movies, and and we try to put on a show every day because it, again, same kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, I wish you all the success, and I'll ask the audience. I put in your YouTube channel and your Twitter, but maybe also look up Academic Agent, because Polly here apparently appears on that show quite regularly, or that channel.
Yeah, well, it's every Friday at 9 p.m. UK time. If you go to my channel, there's a playlist of all of the Women's Hour episodes that I've hosted or that I've been in. So that might be the easiest way to find it, rather than go to the Academic Agents channel, where it's all in a library with his stuff. So if you want to just watch Women's Hour, you can go to my channel. It's all there in a playlist.
All right.
Browse.
Thank you, Poe. It's good to have you on and chat with you. Let's do this again. I don't think I want to wait 3 years or 4 years though. Next time, I think I'll probably do it a little sooner. Sure. Maybe we'll just talk about like art and film and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, so if you guys like this video, let me just make sure I didn't get any other super chats. I did not, so we'll just wrap it up here. I'm gonna go hang out with the patrons. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Let us know so that you will be informed of when we go live. Follow us on all of our alternate streaming platforms, because one day we're gonna be gone from YouTube for sure. So, we're gonna say the wrong thing. We're not gonna say the right thing. Who knows? And yeah, so that, you know, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discuss, and most importantly, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Thank you to Poe for coming on and hanging out with us, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.